I have been a recruiter at Accenture since October 2014, but overall I've been in recruiting for over 12 years at various firms in the Toronto area, both in the corporate and the agency environments. Such companies I've worked for Microsoft, IBM, AMD, mostly in the tech industry, but you know what, I will say I have a pretty broad experience in all types of skill sets. So just as a little bit of trivia / icebreaker, I always love to start things out with a little game called Two Truths and a Lie. So we're gonna test out the interactiveness of WebEx right away. So in that table down below, there are 3 statements. 2 of them are true, 1 of them was a lie. So how about we start by having everyone pick which one is a lie. Which one do you think it is?
So choose your pointer from the top left-hand side of the screen and click on the lie.
Look at that. Nifty. All right. That looks like a pretty even spread between the top secret team that designed the Xbox and never broken a bone on his body.
And Tracy Liddy in the chat, I'll say number 2 is the lie.
So wife is on vacation?
Area is number 1 is the lie.
All right. Well, I think we pretty much have everyone. The lie is I have never broken a bone in my body. In fact, I have broken it once. I was playing varsity softball, and I broke my thumb at the very beginning of the season, and I kept playing the rest of the season with a broken thumb. And that's a problem when you play first base when they throw. So there you go. That's a lie. As for the truth, I have actually worked on a top secret team that did design the Xbox and PlayStation when I was working at AMD. I actually helped build the team that built the Xbox and PlayStation. Just a little bit of nerdy geekyism for me. I am a total geek. And
that's fantastic.
And probably more shocking, my wife is currently on a beach in Cuba vacationing without me. She's on a girls trip with her sister.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here, Jason.
Well,
Thank you for not going to Cuba.
No worries. I'm spending the evening with you guys. No problem. All right, so let's get started with the good stuff. All right, so let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So let's kind of test out the green check mark, red X facilities on the right-hand side. I am very curious, for anyone who has heard of LinkedIn or used LinkedIn, give me a green check mark. If you have not heard of LinkedIn, give me a red check mark, or red X mark, sorry.
So that's a green check if you have used and worked with LinkedIn and heard of LinkedIn, a red X if you have not heard of it. And our folks on chat, yes, yes, and my husband is on it.
Okay, good. All right, well, we have a pretty even spread once again of people who have used LinkedIn and people who have not, so that's actually a good thing. So if I had to summarize what LinkedIn actually is for the people who haven't ever used it, it's essentially a social media website just like Facebook, but the difference is it's targeted at professionals. So some of the big numbers involved, over 350 million people around the world have signed up for LinkedIn. A lot of them are using it. You can tell by 187 million people are actively using it on a monthly basis, and over 2 new members join every second. So within this slide alone, we're talking of maybe 10, 15, 20 people have already signed up. So definitely it is a place that is very active at this point. So what is it used for? It's essentially a place where professionals can connect. For example, you can also maintain contact with ex-coworkers. You can announce their new job. You can find out about their new jobs. And of course, recruiters can post jobs onto LinkedIn. A common question I usually get is, what is the difference between LinkedIn and Monster or Workopolis? Those are 2 sites that probably everyone knows about. The main difference is this. It's the social networking interactivity of LinkedIn that makes it different. It allows people to actually connect, build relationships, and chat as opposed to just a repository that you post your resume into and you have no idea what happens to it. You have no idea who looks at it. That is the difference between LinkedIn, Monster, and Workopolis. So at the end of every slide here, we're also going to take a little bit of questions, Q&A. So if you have any questions about the slide, please do let me know before we move on.
Give us a green check when you're ready to move on. Super.
Okay, sorry, I just see a question in the chat window, mainly pertaining around security. And actually, there's a specific slide I'm going to be talking about security shortly, so we'll get to that topic. Okay, I think we're good to move on. All right, so here's the agenda for today. We're basically going to go through building your profile on LinkedIn. So essentially the profile page of what everyone sees. Next, moving on, is the privacy settings regarding the profile, obviously, because there are some sensitive topics like sensitive information that could be in your profile that you want to control where it goes and who sees it. That's very important. Next, moving on to recommendations and endorsements within LinkedIn, then on to groups, then on to expanding your network, then on to what are you searching for, then who's searching for you, and then finally, next steps and questions at the very end, general questions at the very end. Okay, so here we go, building a profile that engages. So when someone, such as myself, a recruiter, searches on LinkedIn for people, or just searching for people in general, or searching for coworkers, or basically just looking to connect, this is what people will see. This is what I will see. It's very similar to Facebook in the sense that there's a picture, there's your name, there's a headline such as what you're currently doing, your status, and an area such as summary and experience, which is essentially kind of like the portion on your resume. So here's a couple of tips regarding building your profile. The first tip is the picture. Statistically, apparently, if you post a photo on your profile, you are 11 times more likely to get viewed in LinkedIn. 11 times more likely. So definitely post up a picture if possible. But as a tip, this is not Facebook, which means you should be ideally posting a professional type of photo into your profile. So definitely not one that is Facebook type, but more of the professional type, as future employers, recruiters such as myself do view this, so you do want to present yourself professionally. As another tip in the summary experience part, like I mentioned, this is the part that essentially is a mirror of your resume. So this is where you place places you've worked at, the duration, your responsibility, any success stories. And a common question I get about the summary experience is, and this is particularly relevant, I think, to military family, is how do we document gaps in employment? For example, if you were relocating and there was maybe 6 months in between, relocating, and obviously there's also gaps in employment because it takes historically months typically to gain employment. How do you properly document that? And the answer to that is quite upfront, is to just document exactly what's been happening, because nothing jumps out more for a recruiter in a resume than gaps in employment. So that's why I always recommend, if you do have a gap in employment, document it. Feel free to mention that you are either relocating or searching for employment, maternity, paternity leave, that's fine, academic studies, certifications, anything of that sort. Basically what it does is it diffuses the kind of negative kind of impression of a gap in employment before that ever becomes an issue. So once again, just document it, be upfront, document what you've been doing, and that is perfectly fine. And what it also does is when you do document gaps in employment, it also tells the recruiter or whoever's looking at it that you are actively updating your profile and that it's just not sitting statically over that period of time, that you are in fact active on it. It is worth pursuing. All right, so this kind of goes into the next piece of trivia, and that is, what do you think is the most overused word in LinkedIn profiles? So I like this. So using your little arrow pointer, which one do you think it is?
We have motivated in the chat, and if you can speak up a little bit louder, Jason. Also, Katie, if you can perhaps increase your volume on the microphone, might help on your own computer. That would be great. Motivated seems to be the iPad.
Okay. All right. You know what? You guys are pretty good. It is motivated. Motivated is the most overused word on LinkedIn. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. It's common. It's nothing wrong with it. So just a piece of common trivia. Motivated is the most commonly used word in LinkedIn profiles. All right. Any questions before we move on from this slide?
Okay. No questions about the summary, about documenting gaps?
I think Iria had a question about, can you limit who has access to your LinkedIn?
Yep. Yep, and you know what? That is the very next slide we're going to be talking about.
And Richard has a question as well, Jason. Richard, you're muted. If you want to just click on your mute. On Basic Free LinkedIn, is there a place to put a full resume?
Absolutely. Actually, for the end user such as yourself, LinkedIn is completely free to use. You can post as much or as little of your resume as you'd like. It is essentially just like Facebook. The only time billing ever becomes an issue is for employers, and that makes perfect sense. There's you know, it wouldn't make very much sense for LinkedIn to charge the everyday user to obviously utilize your services. It's best to build businesses for that access.
Jason, I've heard that there are some charges if you want to get more messaging or if you want to be able to see more reports.
Yep. I'm aware of that, and actually, you know, I'm going to touch on that probably a little bit later. But,
Super.
But really, you know, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. I'll touch on that a little bit later.
Jason, will you show, because I'm pretty good with computers and I did not find where to put my resume so people can see it, except for the summary and experience like you have now. Yep.
So as for documenting your resume or something like that, that's where I mentioned the summary and experience is essentially it's a mirror of your resume. So that's where I would basically transpose almost word for word your resume into.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
And Kim is asking, you have to enter it piece by piece? You can't just upload the whole resume?
You would have to enter it in piece by piece. And you know what? That raises another good topic, and that is I would recommend you do it piece by piece, mainly because I'm familiar with Workopolis and Monster, where there's an auto upload feature where you basically just send in your Word resume and it'll parse out data. Just from personal experience, I found their auto parsing functionality to be kind of hit and miss anyways, so you're probably better off doing it piece by piece manually. And thankfully, you only need to do it once, right?
Jason, there's another question here that from Katz. Would you like to ask the question, Katz, if you just unmute your microphone?
Hi, Jason. How are you?
Hi. How's it going?
Good, thank you. So my question is actually in the chat. So, But if you have various jobs that were not related to each other, will it make your profile weaker? Like, for example, I graduated photography from Ryerson, but I teach theater, but at the same time I have a lot of experience from Ontario One Call, like, you know, like the damage prevention industry, and they're not related to each other.
Okay, that's a pretty good question. And you know what? Let me see how to answer that one. In a perfect world, obviously, I think experience-wise, we choose to specialize, but realistically, obviously, in real life, that doesn't necessarily happen. And I wouldn't say that would detract from your application at all, basically because recruiters are searching for a skill set. For example, it's not where you've worked or how long you've worked there. It's more important is what you've done at that location. So I wouldn't say that is a negative thing, but obviously specialization, it would be ideal, but I would not say it would detract from your candidacy in most cases.
Hey, Jason, I'll just add in a quick answer, Kat, to that as well. That I think in some ways you can also look at LinkedIn as a way that you would create the brand that you want to project. So, for instance, if you've worked in, a service industry or in the food service industry, but that's not really where you're interested in moving forward, I think there's ways that you can reflect other activities in the additional parts and maybe downplay those elements of your resume that you're really not interested in projecting forward. Because I think you get a chance to sort of give a summary that's shown on the screen now and sort of talk about, let's say you're really into photography and that's really what you want to highlight. You get a chance to sort of project your brand saying, I'm a skilled photographer with a passion for it, and then highlighting those elements. But if there's other less related jobs, you may want to, play those down a bit. But again, it depends on where you want to go with it. But it's probably important to think of it as a brand exercise. Think about what do I want people to walk away with a sense that, of me.
Thanks, Arnold. Arnold, I forgot in the very beginning, I would like to introduce you to the group. Can you just share a little bit about your background and what you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
So Arnold Van Hoeven and I work at Accenture, and so I have the privilege of having all these fantastic volunteers like Jason and Catherine and many others that all work on our Military Family Skills to Succeed program. It's a multifaceted program where we do some in-person live skill building workshops like we're doing in Ottawa last week and this Thursday. And we're also working on developing virtual programming like you're attending tonight. And our goal is to actually try and find ways to deal with the systemic challenges that you all face as military family members in your employment outcomes. So we're looking to at ways that that we can, tackle that. And tonight, really, what I'm excited about is sharing this, LinkedIn with all those people that had the red X and introducing you to this whole networking world from unemployment. So, like Jason said, there's Facebook for your personal life, and LinkedIn is really for your professional life. and the idea of building your network for the purposes of employment is one that you can focus here on LinkedIn. And I think as a military community, it's an area that we can try to drive off of and continue to connect. And so when I meet people like I did last week and you reach out to me and connect, the big thing that you'll see in a minute is you get access to connections through me. And I think that way you all can begin to network with each other and start to help each other build a stronger network to help you when you have to relocate and find new employment. So yeah, I'll let Jason get back to it, and I'll be here monitoring the chat as well.
Thank you, Arnold. And
Thanks, Arnold.
Jason, just before we continue, Iria had a question on how do employers find you on LinkedIn, and it's a question from her, but I know that that's coming up, right?
Yep, I'll share that secret with you guys in a later slide of how do us employers find you on LinkedIn. So I'll give you a little background information on what happens. All right, moving on. And this is one of the big topics that you guys were alluding to, and that is privacy settings. So obviously privacy settings is something that is very, very, very important, especially for our given audience today. Essentially, you have control over who sees your data and where your data is shared. It can get very, very specific. You can control down your privacy settings everywhere, all the way down to who sees your photo, who sees your education, who sees your current position, like where you're working, or even your skill set. So essentially, you can set it so that only people you know can see your profile, or you can set it so that everyone in the world can see it. I do want to note that your LinkedIn profile is picked up by search engines such as Google. So if you do have a LinkedIn account, if you literally go to Google and search your name, your location, and LinkedIn, you will most likely find yourself. So you do want to bear in mind your privacy settings of, do you want to make it private? Do you want to make it public? And obviously, bear in mind, it is shared on Google. So from a recruiter standpoint, there is a relationship with privacy settings. So as a recruiter, if I am searching for you on LinkedIn and I see your profile and I see your skill set and it is the perfect match for what I am looking for, my first reaction is I want to get in touch with you as soon as possible. And as a recruiter, from my experience, this is where I think some people have their privacy settings a little bit too tight, such that I can see where you've worked, I can see your name, your location, but I have no way of contacting you because I don't have your telephone number, I don't even have an email address. If I send you a LinkedIn message, you may not even answer it. So, that's something people don't check very often, to be honest with you. So from a recruiter standpoint, I want to get in touch with people I find on LinkedIn immediately if it is something, that matches with what I'm searching for. So naturally, I do understand the given audience, due to security reasons in the military, I can understand the need for privacy. So here's my recommendation, a little bit of a tip, and that is to utilize the free email and VoIP services available over the internet, such as Gmail or Outlook. Create yourself a dedicated free email domain or email alias just for LinkedIn so that someone can contact you. To give you an example, if you use Outlook.com, they actually allow unlimited email aliases branching off your main email account. For example, if my main email account was jason.chang@outlook and I created a alias dedicated for LinkedIn, it could be jason.chang.linkedin@outlook. Whenever someone sends me that one to my dedicated Outlook account, it will actually show up in my main account. So it's not even something you would need to check on a daily basis. And when it comes to telephone numbers, obviously I understand you don't want to share your home telephone number or your cell phone number, and because of the mobile nature of relocation, maybe even those telephone numbers change all the time. Well, this is where I recommend if you utilize smartphones, such as anything on iOS or Android, there's free apps such as Fongo or Talkatone, and those are apps that are voice over IP, so it's telephone service, and you get assigned a specific telephone number that people can call you at, and it will ring. So definitely a very, very powerful free application to utilize for recruiters to help reach out to you. Okay, any questions about privacy before moving on?
Jason, did I spell Fongo and Talkatone correctly?
You did. Do you use them?
No, I've never heard of them before.
Yep, and like I said, awesome apps, Talkatone and Fongo, and you know what? It's actually helpful even when you travel. So it's not just necessarily for work or business, but for example, if I'm traveling to Europe and I don't want to make any long distance calls, as long as you have an internet connection, like a Wi-Fi connection that's free, you can make those calls for free.
Fantastic. Any questions or comments?
I think I see a question. You can set up a Skype number. Skype, I think charges to get incoming calls, and I think that's specifically the key to this VoIP service, and that is, for example, Google Hangouts or even Gmail. Inside, it has a dialer where you can call out, but they don't assign you a phone number where people can call in. So that's why I would probably suggest Fongo or Talkatone would be good options. Okay.
Are you going to be sending, like usually we do an after-session email, perhaps some of this information can go in the after-session email. Would that be okay with you, Jason and Arnold, especially about the interview tips? You good with that?
Yeah, indeed. I think we've been looking to try and find a way to host it through the MFRC-NCR site, but I know there's people from across the country, and we're happy to provide it to Katie and have it available on the MFS, sites as well, but also happy to send it out to everybody here.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So, Kim, can you hear me now? Sorry, Kim? I just see in the chat that you can't hear me. Sorry about that. I think my microphone keeps dropping down a little bit, but hopefully this will help. Okay, if nothing else, let's move on. Recommendations and endorsements in LinkedIn. So this is another reason why LinkedIn is just so much better than Monster and Workopolis. And to my knowledge, I think this recommendation and endorsement is a relatively new feature of LinkedIn, which has just exploded in popularity and is massively, massively useful. So essentially what it does is it allows people that you know, people in your network, to leave you personally written endorsements, vouching for you, kind of like a reference check. So for example, if I was at a previous employer and I was leaving for whatever reason, and the CEO of the company thought my performance was great, your manager thought you were great, they can document your performance and their impressions of you on LinkedIn for people to see. So incredibly, incredibly powerful. And the best way I like to describe it is, if you're a Facebook user, a good analogy would be it's kind of like the like button in LinkedIn. So just to show you the power of the recommendation endorsement, even though it's a fairly new feature, it's actually been used over 1 billion times. And I'm going to guess it's been around for maybe 1 or 2 years. So you can tell a lot of people are using them. There's over 350 million users with over 1 billion endorsements. That's averaging about 3 per person. So definitely try to get recommendations, endorsements if possible. And of course, for people that people that you have a good relationship with, leave them recommendations and endorsements as well. It only takes a few minutes. And of course, for recruiters, that's massively helpful because it kind of is, like I said, a reference check even before the first interview. So I can know, well, this senior person vouches for you. That's a really good start. So endorsements, recommendations, awesome. Any questions about recommendations or endorsements before we move on?
Where do you go to see your own recommendation endorsement?
Recommendation endorsements that people have written about you?
Yeah.
It's actually at the bottom of your profile.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually part of your profile. It's on the same page, just at the bottom.
Mercy.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? All right, very good. So let's talk about groups on LinkedIn. And this is, once again, another feature that Monster and Workopolis do not have. And what it is, it's a free way for like-minded or similar people to connect and assemble. So you could have a group for a specific skill set, such as, for example, Java development or manufacturing or really any skill set. There are so many groups. There are many, many, many different ones for different skill sets. Or, for example, it could be alumni groups. So for people who graduated in, I'll use example, University of Toronto in 2004, that could be another group. And I'm sure there's groups like that for every single graduating year. Even alumni for employers, there are groups for that as well. For example, people who have previously worked at Microsoft or IBM or AMD or Accenture, of course. There is pretty much a group for every single specific, I'd say, genre of hobby, skill set, school, or profession. So the reason why groups are powerful for myself as a recruiter is because it pretty much is a captive audience for myself. So for example, if I'm looking for someone, and I'll use the Java development, software development skill set as an example. If the Java developers all assemble in a certain group and discuss, all I have to do is put up one posting on their bulletin board, and I have an audience of easily hundreds, if not thousands of people. And actually, it goes further than that because there is, I believe, a weekly or monthly email that goes out for every group that is on LinkedIn, just basically updating the group members on activities on their specific group. So my one posting can go out to what I would know is hundreds, if not thousands of people that I am looking to get in touch with. So if possible, of course, start your own group or join groups that are relevant to your particular skill set.
Yeah, hey, can you guys hear me all right? Everybody good?
I can hear you, Arnold.
Okay, so I know that there's a couple of groups, and we've done a few sessions through the others, and we've set up a couple of groups for military families to network. As Jason said, it's quite an organic thing as well, so it really depends on a community getting together and keeping it going. So I know there's two groups that I've seen through LinkedIn, and I would definitely encourage you guys, as you get into the LinkedIn, to consider you can find those just by name, and then you can certainly join the one that I created at one of the sessions about maybe a little under a year ago. Is an open one, so you're free to join. You just join. There's some that are closed, and then you can control them that way. But I think they act, as Jason said, as a way for you guys to maybe communicate and post up things, and they could be a way that would help you spread information about, again, employment related amongst the military family.
What is the group called, Arnold?
The one, I think it's called Military Family Employment. I'm just going to look it up, and I'll post it in the chat box.
Thank you. Catherine, did you have a question or a comment? I see your arrow.
Yes, hi. So I was just trying to type in the text chat. Thanks, this is a great session, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to drop. But we will continue on with planning our session for Thursday, so we'll be in touch.
I look forward to speaking with you then. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, thanks everybody. We'll talk soon. Okay, bye.
Okay, I think I do see a question in the chat window from Irja regarding the stats on the numbers using LinkedIn. And I think what you're asking is how many people use it. And in one of the initial slides, I said 350 million people around the world are using it currently at a rate of 2 new members per second. Does that answer your question, Irja? Okay. All right. Anything else before moving on?
No, I think.
All right. Here we go.
Here it is.
All right. Expand your networking. And now we're kind of getting into the meat of LinkedIn. So the way that I see the network of LinkedIn and how it works on LinkedIn is it's kind of like that game called 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. So in case you haven't heard, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon means through 6 different people that you may or may not know, you will somehow be connected to Kevin Bacon in some weird, bizarre way that you would never realize. And that's kind of how LinkedIn works. There's first degree, second degree, and third degree connections. So first degree connections are people that you directly know. So they could be friends, family, coworkers, ex-coworkers. Those are first degree connections. A second degree connection is someone that you don't know, but they know someone that you know, which is a first degree connection, and so on into the third degree. So hopefully that makes sense to people. But why is this important? Why is it important to have first, second, and third degree connections? It's because when you have a large number of, for example, first degree connections, it also branches out almost exponentially, because the way it works, it's almost as if you have become connected to people they know. So for example, in the newsfeed portion, just like in Facebook, whenever a second or third degree connection posts something, you will be visible to it. And from a recruiter standpoint, and I know this for a fact, a lot of recruiters will actively post job postings on their LinkedIn profile. In fact, Accenture does it specifically. It's actually a mandate. And I'm also aware that a lot of times regular employees of all companies will reach out and say, hey, I have this job, anybody interested? And obviously there's typically a referral bonus involved with them for them, so they're incentivized to also announce and publicly share that their particular company is hiring, whether they're in HR or not. So that is why second and third degree connections are so powerful, because you may not know them directly, but implicitly through your first connections, they will be people that will hear you and you'll be able to hear from them. So from a recruiter standpoint, it is, once again, it's similar to a reference check, such that if I am contacting someone for the first time and I notice that they know someone that I may know and I didn't realize that connection, that is almost like a reference check. So I know there's a question that is asked often, that is, once you get ramped up in LinkedIn, once you get the ball rolling, in particular because I'm a recruiter, you get a lot of connection requests, often from people that you may or may not know. And that's a sensitive topic. And my answer to that is, should you add these people that you may or may not know on LinkedIn? And that answer would be, it all depends. It all depends on, I know it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but it really depends on your comfort level and your professional utilization. So for myself as a recruiter, I of course want to network with as many people as possible in order to have a larger audience whenever I announce that I'm looking for a specific skill set. So it all depends on your own personal comfort level and of course your privacy, if there's any privacy concerns there. A little bit of trivia, and that is, what do you guys think is the percentage of all online U.S. adults that use LinkedIn? So of all the people in the U.S., and I hate to say it, I only have a U.S. statistic. How many of those
please use
people,
your pointer on the top left-hand side of the screen. Percentage of online U.S. adults that use LinkedIn.
Okay, I think it looks like
we have 68, 68, and 28 from the chat crew.
Yep. Well, the answer to this one of what is the percentage of all the U.S. adults that use LinkedIn, it is 28%. It's actually
That's it?
That is it. Not very many people at all use LinkedIn. Interesting statistic.
Do more Canadians use it?
You know, I wish I had that statistic. That it's actually kind of interesting to see if there's any differences in the online utilization between different countries. But very interesting. Only 28%. It sounds like 350 million people around the world. It sounds like a lot, but I think LinkedIn is still I'd still say it's in the ramping up phase. It definitely hasn't hit its peak yet. It hasn't fluttered out like the other social networks from the past. It hasn't peaked yet at all. So definitely, if you're not on LinkedIn, this would still be a very good time to. And are there any questions before we move on?
I have a question.
Of course.
So has there ever been any fraud with LinkedIn, and what type of things can we be looking for if somebody was to be not very kind?
You may have to elaborate on that question. What do you mean by not very kind? Like
if somebody's trying to con you, or like what type of problems have there been with LinkedIn?
That's a good question then. You know what? To my knowledge, and this is only my own knowledge, I don't think there's been any documented fraud situations, or at least anything covered by the media regarding LinkedIn. So thus far, LinkedIn has been pretty good about keeping a strict.
Jason?
Yep.
Yeah, just I think we were talking about this just earlier. It was last week. I think one of the areas that's interesting about LinkedIn is for fraud. There are a number of areas that people have traditionally lied on their resumes. They include, finishing the school that you just started. They include working somewhere maybe that you didn't, or maybe your job title that didn't really match what you did. And what's interesting is in this environment, because there's so many other people, it's very difficult for people to get away with things that they might get away with on their resume that they're submitting, because it's very public, and you will be called out pretty quick if someone else was the CIO at the company that you're claiming that you were the CIO at. It surfaces very, very quickly. So there's a little bit of a self-correcting feature in the fact that most of this information is highly public, and it makes it more difficult for you to fudge and fib on your resume portion of the LinkedIn.
Very cool. Thank you.
Good call. Thanks, Arno. Sorry, I guess I misunderstood. I was thinking of a criminal nature, sorry, when it came to fraud, but absolutely Arnold is correct. You know, it's these days, you know, of all the firms that I've been working at historically, you know, every single firm will do a background check. So absolutely be as honest and forthright with your summary and experience as possible, because it will absolutely be verified either publicly or, you know, confidentially via a third-party background check company, as most companies, if not all companies these days, will verify whatever you claim to have experienced or obtained in terms of education. Okay, anything else before moving on? I think there was one question from Antonio regarding what is the stigma. Not sure the context of that question. Perhaps you can elaborate perhaps the stigma of why people aren't using LinkedIn or any other thing. Could you please elaborate on that?
Remember, Antonio, you're muted, so if you can click on the unmute so we can hear your answer. There we go.
Hi. So I was just wondering if there's any other reasons not to use it other than what was said by the other user there.
Okay. If let me see. If I was ever asked, you know, why are there not more people using LinkedIn? My answer would probably be because they don't realize who else uses LinkedIn. I think just like Monster Workopolis, that's kind of most people's first choice when it comes to, you know, job employment or searching for employment. I think people have kind of yet to kind of realize the large employer audience that is currently on LinkedIn. I would say it is our #1 tool at this point in terms of searching for qualified candidates. All right.
Hey, there's a question here from Katie. I think she just sent it to me privately in the chat. You know, I'm not calling you out, Katie, don't worry. It was a good question saying, is there a private messaging, you know, way of communicating on LinkedIn? And so it's a good question. And in LinkedIn, there is indeed a, you know, very much a similar to email feature.
Yep.
And that all your messaging is actually private the same way an email is. And so, yeah, so you can communicate one-on-one with people through LinkedIn very comfortably. The one thing I would say is that you cannot reach out to somebody that you're not connected to. So if you see somebody that you'd like to send a message to, you actually have to connect with them before. And before, like, people were asking about what paid features are in LinkedIn. One of the paid features is something called InMail, and you can pay a monthly fee to be able to send messages to people that you're not connected with yet. And so that is one of the paid features of LinkedIn. But as a rule, you have to ask, get connected, and accept it, and then you can chat privately with that person.
Thanks, Arnold. Absolutely a good point, especially about the InMails. And that's where I want to talk about the employer subscriptions. So employers pay quite a large subscription fee to gain access to contacting you guys. So for example, I believe InMails, there's actually a limited amount of InMail messages that employers are allowed to send to candidates such as yourself that we're not directly connected to yet. So that is one way that employers will get in touch with you if we're not directly connected. Okay. Okay, and Tony had another question. Does LinkedIn have some way to make your resume easy to use, or how do you associate a resume with the service? I would say there may be I'm going to suggest an option because I think people still love the traditional PDF or Word resume, and that is this. So, like I mentioned, the summary experience portion of your profile should ideally mirror your profile. Should mirror your resume. That would be the best case scenario. But if you still want to be able to distribute, a PDF or Word version of your resume, maybe throw that document up on, an online hosting service such as Dropbox or Microsoft's OneDrive or even Google Drive. So basically, it'll have you can post up a link in your profile saying, if you do want to download my resume, the original one that you created, then you can follow this link and at least can still pull it via that way. What is Dropbox? Yeah, it's just another online hosting tool for file sharing. Also free, of course. All right, Antonio, does that answer your question? So if you do want to associate it, perfect. I would say host it on one of the free storage services online. Provide a link in your profile if you really must share it. But do bear in mind, whoever sees that can download your resume. So if your resume has personal information like your address, telephone number, that will be public as well. So bear in mind the security implications of that.
Oh, should you be adding your phone number and your address on the resume as well, even on LinkedIn?
Well, this goes back to the privacy topic about this.
I would say no, by the way.
Yeah, so I wouldn't put down your full address of exactly where you live. Feel free to put down the geographical region, such as, I live in a suburb of Toronto or a suburb of, Quebec, for example, or Montreal, for example. As for telephone number, I would recommend putting a telephone number, but one that you would not use on a daily basis, such as your home phone number or your cell number. Do create that virtual telephone number that, if telemarketers get to it or spam gets to it, you can just kill it, create a new one, and then move on. So that is probably my recommendation.
Thank you.
Antonio asked, those servers all have flaws. Absolutely true. How would you protect that info if you put it online? I think it's a catch-22. If you want to associate your resume out there, you would have to make it visible to whoever's looking at it, whether it is good or bad. So my recommendation is I would maybe mention if you want to obtain my resume, contact me directly, give me your email address, and then you can send it to them directly. That would be it.
Yeah, and I guess what I would add to that, Jason, is maybe, on LinkedIn, I think you can put in a higher level description of the general nature, and then always you have a place in a resume to put a lot more detail. I achieved 110% of my quota, or I reduced this process by 48%, and I managed 17 people. Like those types of details maybe are still the place to put in your resume when you're going to go for a specific job. In your LinkedIn profile, you can make, worked in a supervisory, at this, and keep it a higher level. And that way you can, stay away from your phone number, your home address, and too much detail in the profile. And I would encourage you to look around at other people that are in the like field, like area. Look at their profiles and see the level that they go to. And that's a good way to get started.
Cool. Thanks, Arno. All right. Anything else before we move on?
These are great comments you're making. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Oh, there is a question from Katie. You're muted, Katie?
Hi. I actually just typed it out. How does one go about making a virtual phone number? Like what company do we go through for that, or do you do it online? Like how do I do that?
Yeah. So if you're using a smartphone, anything on Android or iOS right now, you want to go to your app store and download either Fongo or Talkatone. So what you do is when you download that app, it'll come up with a registration. So if you've never created an account there, you would create an account with your email, your password, and at that point, they typically will give you a list of phone numbers with specific area codes that you can choose from. So you can actually choose what area code and phone number that's available, of course, that you would like associated with your account. So once you do that, you basically sign in, maybe test it out, make a call, make sure it sounds okay. At any time, just like a regular telephone, if anybody calls that number, your smartphone will ring as if it is a phone call. It'll just say, Fongo calling, incoming call from this phone number. So functionally, it works exactly like a telephone, except that obviously it's not, physically as much tied to you, so that you could, for example, cancel that number and get reassigned a different number if there becomes some privacy issues revolving that phone number.
Okay. All right. Is that free?
Are there long distance charges? Typically not, actually. That's to my knowledge, at least. Try not to hold me to this one, but to my knowledge, there are no real long distance charges, except if you're calling like overseas or something. Obviously, there may be charges there, but if it's within local, I think there are no charges as long as it's local dialing. Overseas, probably there is.
All right, Jason, this is your techie side coming out in you. So let's maybe get back to the try and finish here in the time we got left.
Sorry guys.
No worries. Thanks.
All right, so let's move on. All right, so here we get to the really good part, and that is, what are you using? What are you searching for on LinkedIn? So, like I mentioned, some of the things you use LinkedIn is to, stay in touch with your coworkers, share about a new job that you just started, or even connecting with old school friends. But from a employment standpoint, it's also a place for you to search for job postings that employers put up, and especially, postings that are shared on your news feeds through your connections. So, another great purpose of LinkedIn, for example, is for what I call pre-interview research. So you can look up on LinkedIn, a certain company that you might be interviewing at, just so you can at least get the latest news on them. Or even better, do some research about your interviewer. If you know who's going to be interviewing you, feel free to look up their profile so you can see where they've worked, maybe where they went to school, or through the People You May Know feature, someone you may know actually may know your interviewer. So definitely it is a powerful tool to use before you go through job interviews. Definitely, I highly recommend utilizing it, because most likely that interviewer has already looked at your profile before even interviewing you. All right, just also to highlight, there's a tool on LinkedIn called People You May Know. So LinkedIn has a freakishly powerful analytics engine that will suggest to you, even without any interaction from you, input from you, of people that you may know somehow magically, and it'll show up in your, I believe, right-hand column. So definitely keep an eye out on the People You May Know tool, because most likely it's the fastest way to add people to your network, because they've already identified them for you. All right, so moving on to some trivia, and this is a good question. Percentage of people who have found a job through social networking.
Huh.
That is a good statistic.
What are the numbers there? I can't see them anymore. 8% or 3%?
8%, and 15%.
Ah, okay. So the chat group says 8%.
Okay, that kind of seems to be consensus. The first seems like the leader would be 8%, following up with 15%. The answer to this one of percentage of people who have found a job through social networking is 15%. 15%
wow.
of all people have found a job through social networking. That is that's mind-blowing, because if you really think about social networking from its inception, it kind of started with really the internet. It started with, the very beginnings of Facebook and Twitter, and those are maybe 5, maybe 10 years at most old. So you can really tell just how powerful social networking, such as LinkedIn, is when it comes to finding employment. This number will only increase in the years moving forward. All right, any questions? Okay.
You can put your hand up if you have any question. That's encouraging. Yeah, says Patty. Fantastic.
Okay, moving on. Next question is, who is searching for you? And the easy answer to that is people like me. Recruiters like myself are searching for candidates via LinkedIn. And like I mentioned, LinkedIn is probably by far our #1 utilized tool for searching for qualified candidates. So, like I mentioned before, companies pay a whole lot of money, and I mean easily into the 4 to 5 digits per month for access to search for your profile. So that is why it is very, very important to complete your summary of your experience to the best of your ability, to the best of your privacy comfort, and also have some contact information in order for recruiters or employers to reach out to you. So that's why I highly recommend, obviously, create the dedicated email alias and, if possible, the VoIP telephone number, so at least recruiters can reach you as soon as possible. Because opportunities do realistically move quite quickly. Oftentimes there's multiple candidates, so if you can start the interview process before most people, that gives you a very large competitive advantage. There's also another feature in LinkedIn called the Who's Viewed My Profile, which is awesome. You actually get an email, I think every week or so, with basically how many people, a number of people who have clicked on your profile and looked at your profile. So you can actually see who has been looking at your summary experience. So here's another tip. If you see someone on that Who's Viewed My Profile list and they look promising, they're a recruiter from a company you may want to pursue, by all means, do try to reach out to them, connect with them, and start that conversation if they have not contacted you directly. A very good kind of icebreaker of sorts to begin that conversation. All right, last piece of trivia, probably the most interesting, is what percentage of millionaires use LinkedIn? Totally irrelevant statistic, but I just found it. I just found it wicked. I just found it wickedly interesting. So I want to throw it out there. What percentage of millionaires use LinkedIn? So we have 2%, 18%, 41%.
Lydia says 2.
Okay.
Kim is 18. And Iria is 18.
All right. Well, the answer to this one is 41%.
Oh.
41% of millionaires use LinkedIn. I have no idea what to take away from that, but I just found that really interesting. So some fairly sophisticated users on LinkedIn is what I take away from that. All right, moving on. All right, I think it'd be irresponsible of me if I didn't have to plug Accenture in this presentation at one point or another, but I'll move through it quickly. So I know they made me say it, but Accenture is actually one of the most followed companies on LinkedIn with over 1.5 million, probably more followers at this point. Just some summary about Accenture. We have over 330,000 employees around the world in 56 different countries. Our revenue last year was over $30 billion, and if you look at it from a revenue standpoint, that actually makes Accenture the world's largest consulting company by revenue. So I do want to mention that we do have a marketing and PR team that keeps our LinkedIn account active and recent and fresh, so it is not stagnant data by any means. By all means, please do follow us on LinkedIn if you'd like. Okay, moving on. And lastly, just want to talk about what should you guys do next. So firstly, if you're a LinkedIn user, by all means, take these tips and run with it. If you're a first-time LinkedIn user, do create that profile. I would say it takes 5-10 minutes tops, and you just need to set it up once. Add that professional picture. Like I mentioned, 11 times more likely to be viewed if you add a professional picture. Review your privacy settings. Like I mentioned, totally understand your need for privacy. Do take a look at the specifics of what data you want to be shared with who, and obviously where that data is shared. Start making connections. Look at that people you may know section, as most likely your connections are already there, just waiting for you to connect. Send out some recommendations and endorsements to some of those connections. Join Accenture's LinkedIn group or create your own that are specific to you. And
so I posted a group in the little chat box for everybody, and I noticed somebody already joined during this call, and then you're all welcome to do that. But again, you know, I think for joining Accenture's LinkedIn, like join, you know, potentially groups that are of interest. So in your areas, in your fields, those are, I think, other ideas as well in terms of the groups, forming your own, but looking for groups that are related to the careers and the jobs that you're looking for, I think is an important piece of this too.
Good tip, Arnold. And lastly, of course, do keep that LinkedIn profile accurate as much as possible. So like I mentioned, if there's any gaps in there, it's perfectly okay. Just as long as you document it, it takes away that stigma of gaps in your experience, and of course you're upfront about it. So that's very, very important. I see here a question from Kat regarding what are usually the recruiter's impressions of military spouses, and do they focus primarily on this person's skills or their tenure? Tenure meaning, I suppose, the mobility factor of the relocation factor there. Well, I can only speak for Accenture, obviously, and Accenture is a huge supporter of military spouses. That's the whole reason why, you know, myself and Arnold is doing this. You know, we have a huge respect for military spouses. And in fact, corporate-wide, from a hiring standpoint, absolutely, we actually have a very strong emphasis on diversity hires, and that includes people of military background. Accenture has historically been, and this goes back probably about 20 years or so, I've heard a story, that Accenture used to be actually one of the top employers from ex-military candidates. So Accenture specifically is very much in support for military and their spouses.
I guess I'll just add to that, Jason, that, you know, one of the things we're looking to do is trying to find ways to promote, you know, a lot of the aspects, a lot of the skills, resiliency, and adaptability that the military family community represents, trying to highlight those skills to potential employers. And I think that's an important aspect. You know, it is true, and I know you've encountered it, and you will encounter, you know, employers that look and go, you know, you're going to be posted in 2-3 years. I don't know if I'm going to take a chance. And I remember that from when I was in the Air Force, you know, and I got out in '98. And I know that that's still around. So it's a valid question. We're trying to actively work at trying to reduce the stigma and, frankly, trying to promote all those good characteristics that exist in the military, the veteran, and the military family communities out there.
Thanks, Arnold. And there's a follow-up question to that. Do they focus on do they focus primarily on the personal skills or the tenure concern? Obviously, that depends. That depends on the recruiter, you know. But for myself, you know, purely from an equal opportunity standpoint, you know, it's the skills that are most important. And I think that would probably be true for most recruiters, that it's what you can do is more important than, you know, how long you know, you can stay at the company. That is really just a secondary thing. It's really the skills that are most important.
Super.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we move on?
Okay.
Jason, I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm representing Military Family Services. My name's Katie Ochin, and I recently started a position at Military Family Services to support the employment challenges or help mitigate the employment challenges that our military families are experiencing. And so in one of the surveys, Accenture's been so helpful towards kind of getting the word out to military families and using their skills to really start the conversation and advocate for families. And we know that will continue and hope that will continue, but we will also be having more trainings for family members coming up. So if you are interested, just be sure that you indicate that on the survey that was just sent out.
And so yes, that's a great segue to that survey. Thank you, Katie. In the chat, you're going to see a survey, and if you could just double-click on it and then fill out the survey, that would be wonderful. And then give us a green check when you are back, and we'll continue with questions and wrap up. So if you can just please click on the survey, Survey Monkey to all participants, and then give us a green check when you're back. We really appreciate it because your feedback will help us to improve sessions and bring more sessions too. So Katz, are you able to see the link as well? Great. Thank you. I never realized how much LinkedIn was used, and it's really important to keep your profile up to date, is it not, Jason?
It is. It is. It is, like I said, our #1 go-to spot for searching for qualified candidates. You know, to be honest, I've been at places where they don't even have a Workopolis or Monster subscription because they don't see any value in it. So LinkedIn is oftentimes, you know, our only tool and our best tool at that. And it really is because of that social networking functionality where, you know, it really makes my job as a recruiter a lot easier if I can see those endorsements, or if I know that you know someone I know, hey, that's a great vouch already, right? So they can vouch for you.
Super. What do you think about the eye-to-eye, peeper-to-peeper kind of connections? I mean, that's a great way to meet people to look up in LinkedIn, right? So how do you get out there to the public? Do you go to business meetings? If you're working from home or a spouse, how do you meet these people?
Yeah, so now we're kind of venturing out of the LinkedIn into the, you know, how else do we network? What are some other avenues, I think, of networking? And my suggestion is this, and this is from my own personal experience. If you have any particular skill set that has a user group, and some user groups are actually quite large, at least in the technical community, they have something like monthly meetings. And those are places that I've attended. You know, if there are any type of user groups for specific skill sets that pertain to you, absolutely, those are great places to show up because people like myself will show up there as well because, like I mentioned, captive audience that's already assembled, hey, half my job is done already, and that makes your chances of getting a job just that much better.
How do we find out about those meetings?
Good question. That is probably I'm going to guess LinkedIn groups is a good place because oftentimes not only do you have specific skill sets, but geographic specific groups as well. So for example, Java developers in Toronto or Java developers in Quebec or PEI. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in there. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, go for it, Arnold.
Hey, Margaret, can I share that one slide that I was sharing with you guys last week?
You sure can. I'm going to pass you the ball.
Okay. This is what I'll do is all right, so now I have the ball and I go, remind me again.
So you want to bring up a file. So go up to top left-hand side and click Share.
Yeah, Share, yeah.
And the second one is File.
I can do the application, eh?
You can do an application or a file, yep.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is just for everybody here on the call, I will share this. So everybody, so tell me when you can see this.
Okay, before, I just want to make sure everybody knows that if you bring your mouse right up to the middle of the screen at this point, a drop-down menu will come and you can click on the chat and the participant panel so you can speak and chat. So bring your mouse right up to the middle. There, you can see great, and then you can chat. There's a chat panel that will come out. So we can keep those great chats coming. Thank you, Arnold. Over to you.
So what I'll just show you an interesting little graphic that's pulling up from my LinkedIn profile, and Jason's just given us a really awesome insight from the recruiter side, which is really exactly what you want to know when you're looking for employment. To get his perspective is exactly why we wanted him, and so Jason, excellent job giving us the tour of LinkedIn. It's great to get your insights. This view here is actually from the perspectives of a user, if you will. So this is me, and you're getting a little peek into my actual life for the last 30 years. And so what you're seeing here is every one of these dots is a person in my network. So I have maybe about 800 connections-ish that I've cultivated over time. And on the left here by color, you can see where they come from. So I went to military college. So these light blues at the top represent all my classmates and my connections to them. And every one of these lines means that this person is also connected to that person. And so you can see the density and the interconnections of my entire network here on this graphic. And so I worked obviously in the military, so that this orange space here was in an aerospace defense. Then I worked for a company that related to aviation called MXI over here on the left. I worked for a different company called Ingrain, also in the aerospace and defense simulation world over here. And now I work at Accenture, which is this purple, so for the past 2 years. So I've got a growing network within this Accenture. This just gives you a perspective, and what it tells you is just the connectivity between your worlds. So my military friends from RMC relate to my military career, that's this orange, and a lot of connections here as well that overlap with Ingrain. And you can just get a sense of the overall. This is what Jason was saying, that's so powerful is once you get a network of a few, dozens to a few hundred people, then you're one step away from, just about anywhere that you're interested in working at.
Arnold, we have a question.
Yeah, sure.
The question is, how do you do that? Where do we find that?
Yeah, so this is actually called LinkedIn Maps, and it's a little side app that goes along with LinkedIn, and you can actually use it. It'll generate out of your LinkedIn profile this fancy graphic. To be honest, I think it's just kind of a cool looking picture. There's not that much usefulness, but when you do it on the real one and I hover, everybody's name pops up as you hover over. So every one of these dots is a person.
My goodness.
So it's kind of cool, actually, but it just gives you an idea of how your relationships and how your work and your companies have commingled and worked on a professional networking basis.
Super.
And if anybody wants to ask a question, you can unmute, as Margaret's mentioned as well. And I can stop sharing now.
Thank you, Arnold. I really appreciate that. Okay, so are there any more questions or comments for Arnold or Jason or Katie? Now, Katie, just before we leave, can you just introduce yourself? And we should have done that at the beginning, and my apologies. Can you just say who you are and what your role is? And you're muted. There we go.
Hi. So like I said, I recently was hired on at Military Family Services to help mitigate the employment challenges, specifically for military spouses, but overall for military families. And we are we have a lot of kind of different things that are going to be happening over the next 6 months to a year, so stay tuned. And if you do provide us with your email, you'll be able to get updates on all of those training initiatives and also anything that is happening with Accenture. Again, just so everyone knows, everything Accenture does is on a volunteer basis. And so they're volunteering, Jason's volunteering his time today, Arnold's volunteering his time, so it's fabulous. We're really, at Military Family Services, we're really happy to be partnering with Accenture, and we're also looking to partner with other like-minded organizations that are looking to help military families. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's a pleasure to have you on the line today. And Arnold and Jason, we're really thankful that you're volunteering your time, that you really have a passion for the military family, and you believe that we have the skills needed to really go far in this world. So thank you for coming out.
That's our pleasure, and thanks everyone. Thank you for all of what you do in support of your serving member spouse. For us. So it's a little way to give back, and we're happy to do so.
Yeah. And Scott's giving you a standing ovation with the emoticons. you can choose the clapping. So there you go. If we're going to stay on the line if you have any questions. Antonio's giving a standing ovation too. If you have any questions, we will stay on the line. If you don't have any questions and you'd like to leave, that you would click on the red X on the top right-hand side of your screen. It's a pleasure having you, and we look forward to hosting you at other virtual sessions, which is just growing. We're really excited about it. Thanks, Tracy, for the applause. And Carrie, thank you. Katie, you have a question? You can just unmute.
Hi, I do. Is there somebody that we can email if we have a question like tomorrow or something while we're working on our profile?
You know what, you certainly can, and we've been providing, we have a service that we're doing on a one-on-one basis, and if you actually send an email to, and I'll write it here, mfs2s@accenture.com. This is an email that goes to our core group, and we can provide you with specific help. So I noticed that there's somebody with an interview tomorrow. What we've tried to do with this service and this content is try to make something that is responsive, because a lot of times you need help when you have a job interview tomorrow. You don't need a workshop 5 months from now. And so that's where we're trying to add that dimension to what we can do to help out. So if you send that out, we definitely are looking to try and find ways to provide you with that personalized one-on-one help wherever we can. And I have a team. I have a whole team of volunteers, and so we parse it out to the folks that have signed up to help.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Richard had a question with reference to how do you find out about different virtual programs? Richard, did you want to ask? Is that exactly the question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, maybe different session and when they are and how to get.
So I'm the virtual program. My name is Margaret McKenzie. I should have introduced myself as well. I'm the virtual program coordinator for Military Family Resource Center, Prince Edward Island. From my home office in Winnipeg, and I actually train military family resource centers in how to design virtual programs. I also design a number of programs that are national, and so if you give me your email, I'll put you on the list for our monthly calendar where you will have access to the different programs that we offer. And from the evaluation today, if you gave your email address, then you'll also be on the list for MFS great programs as well that they offer. So great information, and just by being linked into to our monthly email, you'll have that. So fantastic. Thank you. Scott, do you have a question?
Yes, I did. My apologies for joining late, but had some technical issues. My question is for Arnold. I'm not particularly familiar with Accenture, but are you obviously a recruiting company for a broad spectrum of employment, or are you primarily dealing with aerospace industry or something specifically?
Actually, so Accenture is a very large firm. So we have about 350,000 employees worldwide. And so the short answer is we kind of do a bit of everything. But we're primarily in the consulting, and IT and business process and operations, but across every different sector, oil and gas to resources to utilities to defense to aerospace and everything. But Accenture.com certainly gives you a comprehensive idea. And we happen to have some outstanding recruiters. And so I was able to steal Jason to come and give you this talk, but we're not really a recruiting firm. We recruit for ourselves and for our team.
Okay. I appreciate that. Obviously, I'll check you out here once they're finished here. But and I appreciate you guys giving your time there.
Thank you so much, Scott. And actually, you signed in the earliest, so you just had trouble at the very end, so I apologize for that. I love IT. Katie, do you have a question? Or is that up from before?
Arnold,
yeah,
do we register with you guys or send a resume, or how does that work? Is it by your way you're only looking, or we're sending stuff to you guys?
So you're interested in employment with Accenture? Is that what you're saying?
No, like you guys are recruiting, so do I send my resume to you guys so you know what type of skills I have? And
yeah, so again, we don't, we're not, like we obviously have jobs in all different fields. Yeah. So you're welcome to look at Accenture.com and you'll see careers, and there's careers for people with military, service. So you'll find a spot on our, you'll find a spot. So once you indicate that, by all means. But what we do in this program is called Military Family Skills to Succeed. If you need help and if you're looking to try and find a job, no matter what it is, that email that I put in the text box, mfs2s@accenture.com, is there to provide you with help, to find employment no matter what. Et Richard aussi, j'entends que tu parles français, alors on a des volontaires francophones aussi qui sont là pour aider.
Okay.
Et on est content de vous aider en français aussi.
Ben, c'est parfait, merci beaucoup.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
And I hear everybody can hear the birds behind me.
I love the birds. Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I got a nice
that's great.
In the yard with all the birds behind me.
Nice. So if there's no more questions, you just click the X at the top right hand of your screen. And if you're a Mac, you just exit out like you would on a Mac. Good night, all. Thanks, Richard, for coming.
Thanks very much, Margaret.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks very much for spending the time.
No problem. Thanks, Arnold. And thanks, Margaret, for moderating.
No problem. It was a phenomenal workshop. Thank you so much. I really appreciate and value your skill.
Thanks, Jason from MSF. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
No problem. Thanks, Katie.
All right. Bye, Katie.
Bye, Arnold.
These virtual good to drag on.
Yeah, I'm gonna sign up too. Gotta feed the dogs.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta feed the birds apparently. Bye now.
All right.
All right, Margaret. Good job.
Thank you again for volunteering. I really appreciate that. I mean, what a phenomenal organization. The Skills to Succeed program is amazing.
Yeah, I just saw that this year we upped it to 3 million worldwide. So this is good. We need the big numbers that you're posting up here for these sessions.
Now, the Skills to Succeed, is it only in Ottawa or is it anywhere?
No, it's a global. So we do it around the world.
So how can I get involved in Winnipeg?
You know what? We don't have an office in Winnipeg. We've got one in Montreal, Fredericton, Ottawa, Toronto, and then we skip over you and go to Calgary and Vancouver.
That's typical.
I know, eh?
Nobody wants Winnipeg.
No, but you're doing a great service, like on Thursday night when you help us out. So I think that's actually good.
Yeah, well, anytime I can be of assistance, or if you have another idea for a virtual program, I'm all about that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm certainly I wasn't able to stay on the whole time last night, but I saw from your feedback it seemed to be very well received.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was good last night. It
was very good. Allison is such a professional, and she has such great information. And one of the parts that was really requested was to have more information on how to start a business.
Yeah, so I thought I saw that in your follow-up survey, so I think that'd be interesting to follow up with Katie and see what we can do. Because I like the idea. There was a woman that Katie mentioned. There's a couple that have done work as virtual assistants, and it would be fun if we could try to talk to them and maybe get them to have an open line chat of saying, hey, I've been in this business for years, and here's what I've found ups and downs. Talk to real business operators in virtual assistants. And I think that would be a great follow-up to that session. If we can get, I forget the names of the ladies, but
I think it was Tracy. Yeah.
Is it not the Tracy that was here even?
I think it was, but I can get an email out and ask.
Because I think that would be an interesting one as well. That and was she there last night as well?
Yes.
Oh, she was. Oh, good.
Yeah. So I'll double check that was the name, but I think that's what I thought